Bonjour Africa, welcome to IG World Network, where we go around the globe giving you the latest in the world of news. It is news for people, by people. As we said earlier on, that we are covering stories that are taking place in South Africa, and our focus being the month of August is that we are focusing in South Africa mainly around the forensic investigations in the financial sector, judiciary, and the police. Now, I don't need to waste too much of your time. I have to get our guest now, who's going to be also revealing, the madness that is going on when it comes to investigations in South Africa. Mr. Richard Seed, welcome to IG World Network.
Angela, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
It is good to see you. I know we had a pre-interview call to just chat about what is your story, and we felt that as IG World Network, it is a story that is worth to be taken out there for our viewers and the African continent as a whole, because we are finding that there is consistency in terms of the behavior of the financial institutions around the similar story. But let's start here. Who is Richard Seed?
Absolutely, Mandla. The story with bank fraud is a huge problem. Who is Richard Anthony Seed? Well, I'm going to start with Captain Anthony Hugh William Seed, my father. My father was in the Royal Marines in the UK, and he worked for British American Tobacco, known as Rothmans International back then. And Mr. Rupert was my father, which is Johan Rupert's father, and my father worked together in the company British American Tobacco South Africa, which is known today, but it was Rothmans South Africa back then in the 80s. So we're going to call it maybe the 50s to the 60s, and my father, Anthony Hugh William Seed, was the first founder sponsor for the Durban July today, called the Rothmans Durban July.
Wait, Richard, wait. The Durban July that we know as we know
today.
Today
as Vodacom,
yes.
Durban July, back then it was Rothmans International South Africa. My dad, Anthony Hugh William Seed, was the sales director, sponsor, the overall sponsor of the Durban July since it started. I think it was in 1962 to 2010, but my dad died in 1988.
Okay, now you mentioned the Rupert's family.
Yes, they were involved.
The Rupert's family that worked with your father?
Johan Rupert's father and my father, they were in the same company together, which I found out the other day. So it was very nice to find out from Johan's secretary that they're trying to basically track all the shares that were stolen from my father's estate. So this is how I'm getting to know that my father was very wealthy back in the day, and he was known as Mr. Rothmans South Africa.
So your father was based in Johannesburg?
Yes.
But your father, he was in the Marine?
He was in the Royal Marines,
He was in the Royal
UK,
Marines?
yes. When he finished school, I suppose, when he was 29 or 28 or 17 or 19, I think that's when they start. And then I think he was there in the Royal Marines to the late 40s. Then he came to South Africa.
Then he came to South Africa.
Yes.
That's when the now known British Tobago.
Correct. Now that when they
Tobago
changed from when they started with Rothmans International, it was known all around the world. Then South Africa started their own company.
Yes.
And my father was sent to South Africa to start the company. And what I learned that I think it's Anton Rupert and my father, and they started working in the company together. And then obviously grew from there. My father was obviously the sales director in the UK. Then he came to South Africa to be the sales director to run all the divisions. I think it was 5 companies. And then he did all the sponsorship back in the 70s or 60s, whenever it started, to the 80s when he died. And he survived with 4 children, which was Charles Seed, David Seed, and myself, Richard Seed.
Now, what brought us to you is the media release that was sent out to all of us on the 21st of August in 2023.
Yes.
What is your matter that you are fighting? Because we see that there's a big fight that you are engaged on.
Well, my brother Edward William Seed and myself, we are fighting this case together. Well, I started the case because he knew I was going to do it. He just didn't know when. Because I'll tell you what actually happened. FNB fiduciary Santon were the administrators of my father's estate. And they didn't wrap up my father's estate. And his estate was filed in Pretoria. Now, 20 years later, it was investigated that they didn't wrap up the estate at all. They just transferred the property to my mother, but in the meantime, they transferred it to themselves. They didn't transfer it legally to my mother, so meaning it goes back to my father's estate, and the estate will be removed from FNB. It will be given to someone else, and then they'll wrap up the whole estate. So technically, you're going to say since 1975 and today 2023, the property still belongs to my late father, Anthony Hugh William Seed, and obviously the estate and the shares would have to be unraveled and start again from scratch.
So the estate of your father is sitting with FNB.
Yes.
Have they reached out to the family to say, this is what we have on your behalf and what you want to do with it?
Not at all. That is what was supposed to have happened between my mother and my brothers at the time, and then they kept on fighting it, but nothing got resolved. So you're going to say the fraud started already after my dad's estate was announced by the Master of the High Court that FNB will be the estate executors, but it actually turned out to be Findlay Mayor attorneys in Pretoria that were the executors of my father's estate on behalf of FNB Barclays Bank. And they're the ones who committed the crime. So they will be cited in the court application coming up now. Case is now moved from Johannesburg High Court, which is case number 2022 149 59 slash, so it's 14959/2022. That's now been heard in the Johannesburg High Court in 2021, 2022, and 2023. But because the case is now a criminal matter, it's now moved to the Pretoria High Courts for a pre-trial that's coming up soon, and then obviously the trial will happen. Wait for it. When I talk to you later in the interview, it's going to be exciting.
You know, now it's moving. You are saying now it's moved to be a criminal matter.
Yes, from a civil case.
But it's a criminal matter against who?
The criminal matter or the civil matter, let's go through the civil matter. It's against 25 other respondents.
Okay.
Would you like me to name them?
Yes.
All right. It starts off with FNB fiduciary Santon.
Yes.
Yvonne Gladys Murphine, who's the second respondent. The first respondent is Andrew Investments, Brian Spaniel Mars, and he's passed away. So he can't talk in court. So he can't explain. And then the third respondent is Dr. Yvonne Gladys Murphine, who has opposed the application and has filed an affidavit, but she will appear in court. So she would have to testify on behalf of the first respondent of how she bought the property from him and so on. And then Slipknot is a company that's unknown, but it's turned out now in courts that Adrian Bernardus Ordendale and Linda May Ordendale own the company Slipknot. And then you got the fifth respondent. Guess who that is? The person that's from Zambia, Mr. Paul Steele.
Oh,
he was arrested.
The very same Paul Steele.
Yeah.
We've heard so much about Paul Steele.
I've heard
he was arrested there.
He was arrested on the property, I believe, on the 28th of February 2022. I mean, for all sorts of stuff, but we'll get into that. What I've been told from the investigators. He is All Park Properties.
All Park Properties.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the sixth respondent, we'll get into that one just now. It's actually an interesting one. Her name is Precious Motomo Botle. And I will reveal to you just now who she really is. She hasn't been seen at the property, or she has, but it's been proven who she is. But she's no longer there, and it's a mystery. And APSA has opposed the application, and they're trying to defend her, but they now know in the last week that her real identity has been discovered, and now they think they can get away with it, but they can't. So APSA is the sixth, Precious is the sixth respondent, and then FNB is the seventh, and APSA is the eighth. And then, of course, it goes to the National Prosecuting Authority and all the government people. But then we get to the other respondents. Those are the property agents.
Okay.
Now you're going to deal with Sotheby's International, Just Properties, Pam Golding Properties, and the agent for Pam Golding Properties and Sotheby's, he's no longer. His name is Mr. Wayne Brownhill. Apparently, I was told from Eugene Halliday that he had passed on last year. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't stop there. There's Jonathan McCarthy, who's the other agent, who has to explain why did he sell the property to the sixth respondent in 2021. I mean, after a criminal case was reopened.
So, with your understanding,
yes,
the property in question is been sold how many times since your father's passing?
Since my father's passing, well, it goes to my father to my mother, so there's no originally selling. It goes from 2002, so you're looking at 6 times.
6 times
Yes.
to 2002.
Correct.
And you are alleging that all these sales, they are dodgy.
They're all
there's
dodgy,
something-
yes.
There's something
There is-
not...
It's definitely not that the banks, we're talking now about ABSA and FNB, they can't provide their bond papers on any of the bonds. Now, the fifth respondent, they say it's a cash payment of 7.5 million Rand cash. Now, you want to ask, where's that transaction? Now, they said it was transaction from Zambia to ABSA and this and that. Then you realized, okay, now we know who Mr. Steele is. But they can't provide any documents in court. The judge, I think it's Judge Fisher and AJ Stratham, they have requested the documents, but to date, no bond papers have been provided. But getting to the title deeds, there's lots of defects in the title deeds.
But now, here's another question.
Yes.
When you're buying a property, there's a conveyancer that must be involved so
Yes.
that they can register the property.
Yes.
So who were the conveyancers in all these transactions when they were...
Now, before we get to the conveyances, there's a process. I'm sure when you go and buy a property, this is what I'm going to get to just now about the sixth respondent.
Yeah.
What would you do when you go and buy a property? Wouldn't you go and search on the internet and do some research on the property before you
about
buy
the
it?
property, about the area, about, previous owners and what's going on there? Yes.
That's what you would generally do. Now,
Yes.
if you type in my name on the internet, you'll see my name popping up. Now, would you go and buy that property? If you see my name popping up and you see I've got a
No,
court
but
case.
if I don't know anything about Richard Seed...
But if you just happen to type in the address,
Yes.
and then you saw my name coming up, and then you saw there's fraud in the bank, and there's this in the case, would you still go and buy a property?
No, if for a normal person, no.
Yeah.
Hence, my follow-up question was to say, who are these people that have been buying this property?
Now I'm going to get to the conveyancer now of 2002. Now that is a conveyancer called Theo Trump Attorneys. Now they cancelled business or closed business in the 90s, somewhere around the 95, 96, 97. But there is a lady named Maurelise Swart who works for STB Attorneys who will have to explain in court, in the upcoming court proceedings, of who is Theo Trump Attorneys. Now they were the conveyancers in 2002 that transferred the property from my mother to Andre Investments, which is Brian Spanier Marsden. And now, knowing in 2021, they were dismantled or closed down, as they call it these days, in the 90s. How can they transfer a property if they're no longer in service? But the attorney that's currently alive now, that is Maurelise Swart from SDB Attorneys. She would have to explain that.
So he knows the transaction was done. They've confirmed that the transaction, the registration and the transfer of the property was done, but there are no proper records that are speaking to that.
Especially money transfers, no records on that. There is title deeds. You can see it's all been transferred. Looks like it's all legit, but it's not. According to SARS, no SARS was paid. And according to Home Affairs, my mother's maiden surname was used and her ID number, because my mother came from the UK. So she was a South African, obviously 10 years, 12 years later after she moved to South Africa. So they used her maiden ID number, which ended in 103. Now, you're not allowed, which is illegal.
Yeah.
So you will use your, 087 is your South African ID number. So 103 is a residence ID number, and 087 is a South African ID number. Now, they used the 103 to commit the crime in 2002, because remember, 087 came into effect in 1992, and 103 was cancelled in not only in 1992, in 1987 it was cancelled, and then she got another ID number, I think it's 186, and then it changed to 087. So getting to that transfer of 2002, it was fraudulent from the start. But not only that, because the estate wasn't done correctly, all the transactions since 2002 gets deemed it's cancelled.
Now, there are, on the recent, now fast forward, on the recent transactions, how are the banks involved if there has been no bond applications, bond process, and now we are talking about cash, transactions?
That's what the deeds office, there's a lady named Esty Pienaar. She's the Registrar of Deeds Pretoria. She did a deeds report. And then I used Ansie de Wet because I knew her from years ago. She was the ex-registrar of deeds, and she did a full expert deeds report. And she asks all those questions. They can't track where the bonds are. They can't do anything. So the question is, the court has to request a court order to the banks to request the 2002 transaction, 2003 transaction, 2004, 2005, 2013, and 2021. Now, ABSA and FNB are refusing to provide those documents.
They are refusing?
Yes.
So it's only the courts that can compel them to...
For some reason, I don't understand why, but they say it's got to do with the PRECA Act and the POCA Act and all. It's always an excuse with the banks.
Oh, okay, but that's fine. Courts can...
Yes, the courts can
circumvent that.
Yeah, they have tried.
subpoenaing
They
them.
have tried. Judge Fisher's tried, and they say they've tried, but there's been no news to date of any of those transactions, especially the fifth respondent, Mr. Steele, of his transaction of 7.5 million and not 7 million. Either way, they must show that transaction because that's the big one. They say it's a cash transaction, no bond on the property.
Okay.
But that property was half of 2,000 squares, 1779 squares. So that's not the issue. My father actually owned 8,179 squares originally in 75. Then somehow it was 4,000 squares, which is fine because the property next door, which is on a water table, which means you can't actually build a house next door. But they took the chance to build the house, but now it's busy falling down. But they did all their corruption in the meantime and stuff, which we'll get into just now. It didn't faze me at all. But what I know today, I wish I knew in 2002 when I got evicted from the property. But getting to your main question, the transactions need to be proven by the banks, and they're going to have a problem in court because they don't have the documents. If they do, I'll be surprised.
If they are saying it was just cash transactions, we understand it could be an EFT, direct transfer from one person, one individual to another, or a company to another, but it will be done via the banks.
Yes.
But in this case, we are saying the banks are not succeeding in terms of providing
bond papers, and they're trying to say it's cash, but if you look at the deeds reports, they mention a bond with ABSA, they mention a bond with Investec Bank, they invest a bond with FNB. And the banks have been served the documents, but they can't provide the documents because they think this matter is not in court, and it's been in court already since 2021, but now it's getting into pre-trial. So meaning pre-trial is that you negotiate with all the respondents and you get all the finalization with them, and if they really want to go to court, they're gonna burn because there's a lot of criminal activity going involved, especially with the fifth and sixth respondent. It's out of this world at this stage.
Just coming back to Mr. Sid, your father.
Yes.
How many properties did he have?
My
before his
father,
passing?
let's go to that one property in Sandton, 146 West Road North, Morningside, Sandton. I'll give it to you again. 146 West Road North, Morningside, Sandton. There's two properties that's under investigation at the moment, 144 and 146 A and B. The total size of the property that my father owned is 8,179 squares, which is 2 acres and 179 squares. It's a consolidated property. So everyone is wondering, why does my father own such a big property? Well, when my dad purchased the land in 1975, it was set out to 8,179 squares.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the properties that then started mushrooming.
They started mushroom around, yes. So in fact, in that area where when you go there, I think it's tomorrow or the next day, you're going to have a look at the property. You'll get to see all the surrounding houses. Just put your picture in your brain that the Sandton Police Station to where my father's property was called the Zandfontein Farm. That's what the SIU is busy tackling in court. Portion, I think it's 425, 42. That's my dad's property, and the rest of that's going to be a farm. It might come back to life as the Zandfontein Farm, or maybe not, but it's been very quiet at the moment with SIU, which is fine. They know I'm getting the property back, so they tried to auction the property, but they know they couldn't get it right because they knew the cover-up.
Now, who was trying to auction the property?
The SIU was trying to do that with Pam Golding Properties because they were trying to not get involved with the cover-up. It was instructed by the government. But before they found out what was really going on in their property.
Which cover-ups that you're referring to?
Well, Do you know much about the underground tunnels in Sandton?
I don't know much about the undergrounds, but what are you saying? There are underground
There
tunnels
are
in
underground
Sandton?
tunnels, yes. And when my dad's
What are they used for?
I think back in the day in the 70s, I've been doing some research this week. Apparently that was used for getaways or hideouts or something, but I'm not too sure exactly what they were used for.
So they are in and around Sandton?
Around Sandton and the Morningside Clinic area, Rosebank. I think Eugene Halliday told me they're around the whole area of Joburg. They're all linked for something, but they're also being used for criminal activity, I'm sure. I just don't know in what extent. But what I do understand now, there is heavy security at the property at the moment because one of the entrances are at the property, an underground basement, which the Silverton SAPS spoke to me about 2 weeks ago. What do I know about it? And I said, I don't know anything about it. But they discovered something that was really interesting. And I think it was shown on part 1 and 4 on Al Jazeera about the gold mafia. It's linked to Mr. Steele.
The documentary that was aired by Al Jazeera,
I was very surprised.
It linked the property in terms of part of the property.
It did. And I only found this out a few weeks later after it aired when I spoke to one of the producers, Candace. She told me that they've been trying to locate me because they wanted to interview me on that story to show the property 146 West Road, North Morningside, where all the action was taking place. They seemed to know more than what I knew. And I thought, wow, this is actually even bigger than I thought. Oh, my case is going to be a piece of cake now in court.
So now the property, the SIU, why are they claiming that farm?
That was something they were investigating June while the deeds. Remember, the deeds office was closed over the Easter weekend. They said they were going to move to another premises, and that was a cover-up. It's not really true. They're still in the same building. So they closed the deeds office because they were busy investigating that property of the farm area, and it was linking up to, I think, somewhere there in Kempton Park. That was something that just happened to be another aspect to the investigation. So that's kind of quiet at the moment. So I don't know where that's going, but there is a video on YouTube where I spoke about it on Loving Life, because that was the information that I got the day before they attached the property on the 13th of January. I knew it was going to happen anyway, but they weren't going to sell it, but they were instructed to sell it. But then I told them, hang on, you can't. You just told me that you're going to do this. But that was just one of the properties. There was a few properties and all that, but I don't know where that story is going because it's gone quiet. But the SIU does know that that's my dad's property. They know they can't touch it, but then they discovered there's another fugitive on the property that we'll talk about on the show today. And I was very surprised, and I thought, wow.
Now, Richard.
Yes.
Your brother is still alive?
Edward William Seed, yes. He's in the US.
How do you guys feel, about your parent home being involved in so much?
My brother is in tears. He is very disappointed. I know, but he knows I can handle it because he told my dad this property is going to be stolen one day, and he must make sure my mother doesn't sell it. And he prepared me as well because we knew it was all going sour already in the 90s. People were trying to buy the property for what we didn't know. But there was a little area that's on portion 2. That's what they were looking for. But I didn't know that at the time until now. And that area was very valuable to many people.
To many people. Now, what you've then discovered after these new investigations of you trying to claim your family home, if I may put it that way, trying to get it back, what do you discover now?
I mean, just getting to your previous question of my brother and his emotions and that, but he's a strong man because he's been in the army and that he knows that I can handle it. He knows that I'm busy cracking, but he knows that I'm going to finish this case because I said to him last year already, I'm going to get 3 properties back and I'm going to make sure I get them back, and I'm going to get whatever's involved, stopping it, taken down as well. And now you see with all this fraud getting involved, my brother thinks, well, it's better that you're involved than he is, because he's in the US. He can't really do much because he lives there now. So he knows that I can do it because my dad raised his children well in Marriott Brothers and university and that. I didn't get that opportunity because he passed on. I was 10 years old when he died. But he said to my mother that this property is for Richard for the rest of his life. And my mother knows it. And my mother couldn't fight it anymore with Brian Spanier-Marsden because she had threats by Brian, and Adrian Bernardus Ornendal was involved back then. I didn't know until now. That was his partner working for Andre Investments.
Yeah.
And it's just been so sad. It's been tough. But getting to your question now of how do we feel about the fraud, it's crazy. It's mind-blowing. It feels like it's going to be a movie one day.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if somebody does a movie of this, because it's actually crazy of how they could do this fraud, especially a state fraud. But what I've discovered, it's been a good learning curve. I'm not an investigator, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a normal South African citizen, but I've had some help with various investigators involved. Mr. Boas is involved, Amiga Security is involved, Chad Thomas from RRS, I can name a few, and Cap Security is involved. They're currently looking after the area and the property, and there's some other private company security there. I'm getting some information of what's been discovered and found, and it's actually quite scary because you are dealing with big pockets here and big people that think they can do fraud, but you know what? There's a snake at SIU, as you know, they've got the picture of the snake. That snake is going to bite everybody, and the SIU knows that I'm on top of this case, and that's why they're leaving me alone, because they know that if they arrest me, they know what's going to happen in this country.
Now, you've mentioned one that you discovered in your investigation, which is the SIU, that they were trying to sell auction the property when they were doing their investigation. So what other findings or revelations that you've come up now, that you know now, which you did not know then, that were happening in your family property?
There was something that was stored underground back in the 70s, and that is actually bomb number 7. I think it was the making of the bomb, and it wasn't fully made, and that was removed off the property on the 28th of February 2022. So that was the missing bomb that's alleged online that they can't find. That's what I was told from governments. That's what they found on the property.
Okay, hold on. A bomb?
Yeah, it's basically a making of the bomb. It's
owned by making of a bomb? Who was making that bomb?
That would have been done in the 70s. It could have been the Americans or the UK people. I don't know who made all the bombs back in the end. But I know the CIA was involved last year, and a whole lot of people involved. And because they knew that I was getting the property back, but because there was other people involved, they discovered it. They didn't want them to discover it, but they were getting close. So I can tell you the property's been monitored by international big army people for 24/7 for years now. But there was a decision made that I got a phone call that be prepared. There's something going to happen in the next 24 hours. And that's what happened.
Okay. Now, if you say it's been monitored, you're talking about
the satellite photos, like Google Earth and things like that.
You are talking about what was being manufactured there, which was recently removed. So when all these sales and transactions were happening, how were those people living?
They just told me to keep my mouth shut until such time. We want to see exactly where this is going. So I knew something was up. I knew in 2002, around about December 2003, that there's going to be a hairy international investigation carrying on the property. I must just act normal, which I did, and I just fight to get the property. But because the evidence was getting worse and worse as the time went by, because the fraud started in 1989, which I knew in 88, and then 2002, I knew that was going to happen. 2003 was going to happen again. 2004, they knew it. So I was told, some from big people phoned me and said to me, my brother even told me, just let it go, because there's a lot of violence that's going to happen against me and my mother if we carry on. We've had guns at our heads. We've been threatened by Nigerians and all sorts of people for all the years. And I had to keep quiet on this, and it terrorized me, but I had to stay strong, because I know my dad's spirit, because my father passed away on the property on the 13th of March, 1988. So I knew my father was on that property. His spirit is protecting the property. So that's why I knew one day I'm going to get the property back. So I set my goal for 20 years later. So 21 years later, I'll be getting the property back, which will
Okay,
be here.
that's the first one that you uncover.
Yes.
Which is the bomb.
Yeah,
that
it was there.
being
Yeah, so I'm
manufactured.
not sure exactly the ins and outs, but what I've been hearing, my brother's also trying to find out things as well, but we're not getting any, the CIA.
Your
and all
brother,
that.
he was
won't.
in the military. I'm sure
Yeah,
he will find that one.
Yeah,
out.
we'll find it out one day.
Yeah.
But what was really taken out of that property there, I just remember an army truck coming past the Rivonia property, 2:30 in the morning. And I knew where it was going, and that just basically confirmed it came from my father's property. So that's what I mean, the police even questioned me on this, where was that vehicle going? In court that day. I was in court on the 28th that day, and they were knowing about the raid at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when I believe Mr. Steele was arrested. So Captain Malana told me this in March last year, which is fine. It doesn't bother me. I don't really care what these criminals have done. But when I found out now this year of what's really going on, especially from the Altrazera story, it actually makes you wonder, how did these people get away with it for all these years? And you're like thinking Sandton Police Station is literally 2 kilometers away. But you see, it's not bribes. It's not that. It's also people. I mean, you're not going to deal with the gold mafia. You're not going to deal with all those people, so you rather keep quiet.
Okay. Now, another discovery that we are now mentioning, very brief, which is the Al Jazeera, expose.
Yes, I wasn't.
You did not know.
I didn't know
that
at the
it
time.
was your. You watched the Al Jazeera
I watched it,
documentary,
and
but
so
you did not know it was in your family property.
I didn't know it was going to go there, but they didn't show that footage. But I did see the after footage that they did film it, but they didn't want to use it because it might jeopardize my case.
Yeah.
But they knew there was something happening underground, which I'm still finding it hard to believe. But according to the security...
What is it that is happening under the property?
Well, I've spoken to some of the security guards over the years before. The state security, I think, is there now. But the other security guards wouldn't say anything. But they said that, no, there's a big basement that goes from Portion Zero by the pool, and it goes to the second house, and they lifted up all the floor. I saw the photos from the various security companies because they wanted me to verify what I remember back in the day. So they were doing all sorts of stuff maybe underground. To me, it still doesn't believe it's real, but everyone says it is.
Yeah, but from your family property,
Yes.
into the properties next to your
each other,
family.
yes. So portion 0 and 2 are heavily investigated at the moment. What you see in my father's property at the moment is all the floors are lifted up. They had vinyl floors on there. They're all lifted up. The ground's been dug up. They've been digging. They found entrances and things. But at the moment, it's all now belongs to state. So the state has to do their investigations and stuff. So it's frustrating for me because I don't know what's really going on, and they think I know what's going on. But it's actually sick. It's sad because it's like, and people say, do you really want to go back to the property because there might be dead people underground being, there's been lots of stories about that,
Yes.
people have been murdered and so on. I said, you know what? My dad's spirit is there. Nothing will happen to me if I go back there. I just want my dad's home back, my childhood home. They can knock portion 0 and 2 down because those houses weren't allowed to be there in the first place. And that will be back to what it was back in 1975 when my dad bought the land and built the house. That is my family home. That is my legacy of my father's generation property.
So your father built the property,
The
never
house.
purchased it?
No,
It
he
was
just
a-
purchased the whole land
and
of
then
8,000
built.
squares and he built the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, further to your investigation, now I believe that we are linked now to another case.
Yeah, I'm now linked into this as a witness in the, I should actually say in the Bester case. It's actually...
Whoa, hold on. Bester, Thabo Bester,
Yep.
the prison escapee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm linked
Do
to
you
that.
know him?
No, never met him ever in my life. I've
So
seen him
how
on
do
TV.
you then connect
That is
it?
what I asked
Because
the-
now we are going to be
The Silverton
the state
SAPS?
witness or his witness?
No, state witness.
A state
on that.
witness.
That's just on the property, not any of the other allegations. But the brigadier was at the Silverton SAPS about 2 weeks ago and sat me down.
Yeah.
And she said, Mr. Seed, unfortunately, you're going to be a state witness in the Bester case. And I think, why? And then I knew in my head from all the stories what people are saying, why? Because he was at the property with Nandipa. But Nandipa,
At your family property?
yes, on portion 2.
How did he get in there?
That's what the state wants me to explain, which I don't know.
Yeah.
But they think I know because they see online that my dress has got my name on it and this and that. Well, Google Earth, no,
Okay.
that's probably. So they're trying to be clever,
Yeah.
but they think I knew why and who is Precious. Do I know who Precious is? And I'm like thinking,
Who is Precious?
well, that is the fourth accused, Dr. Nandipa, known as Kiva Bikiwe. So Bikiwe, Kiva. That is what I've been told.
No. I'm losing you there. I'm sure even our viewers
I know
are
they're
going
gonna be
lose you.
surprised,
They're going
yes.
to lose you.
Yes.
You are saying, let's go slow a bit. Thabo Bester
Yeah.
and Nandipa Makutumela that we know,
Makudama, yeah.
they were staying at your property.
On portion 2, that's what I've been told, yes, for a number of years and not months or days.
They were not arrested there, obviously. They
Not at the
stayed there
time, no.
until
Till the 17th of March, the CCTV footage identifies that there's a camera at the property. I think you've seen the video.
Yes.
There's a camera outside the property.
Yes,
They
a big
monitored.
camera. Big
Yes, it's a
camera.
big rotating camera.
Yeah.
That monitored the red Mercedes-Benz leaving on the 17th of March.
17th of March,
Yeah.
2023.
Correct, yes. And not in Hyde Park, as they allege.
So the Hyde Park home that we are told that they were staying,
Well, I
it's a
did
wrong
my own
address.
research on that, and I spoke to a couple of journalists on that, and they're also very puzzled on that because the invitation that Nandipa put out, I think you saw that for a party.
Yeah.
I typed in that address, and it definitely does not show the Hyde Park house. And you can see it looks like an estate because you know the dustbins that were taken out of one of the shots, and the
Yes.
media was very stupid on this one because there was 6 or 7 when they were doing that interview.
Yeah.
6 or 7 dustbins. Now you're asking yourself, if it was just those 2 living on the property, why would they have 7 refuse dustbins? So they were obviously in a state being built there. I haven't been there myself, but what I heard from some journalists that it was gutted and it was being renovated. So how would they be living on that property
If it was being
if it was being
renovated.
renovated, if there was no carpets and anything? So I'm asking myself, what's going on here? And then I'm like speaking to the police.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the first one. Then the second one, we are saying Dr. Nandipa Makutumela, as we know her,
Yes.
it's not her.
It's not her. She's apparently 4 or 5 aliases. That's what's been discovered by the Hawks, and the Silverton SAPS told me 2 of the names.
Yes.
And I said, well, the 6th respondent is Precious. She's on this title deed. So the file that I have that I will give to you, that's the 6th respondent, Precious Myrtle. Now
Precious Myrtle.
Yes. Now she's the 6th respondent. Now they're trying to find her. They can't find her. But when they put in her ID number, it shows Kiva. And then you're like thinking, who's Kiva now?
Kiva, who's Kiva?
Now, who's she now? So like looking on the internet thinking now, okay, she's now linked to Mr. Steele. She apparently dated him and went to Zimbabwe and things like that. There's a story. If you type in Bikiwe Kiva on the internet, you'll see the whole history with Mr. Steele. And then there's no doubt that Mr. Bester was involved with that whole thing as well.
So Kiva
Yeah.
and Mr. Steele.
Yes, were together first before Bester maybe came on the scene. I'm not sure the story.
Okay, so where is Mr. Steele now?
Mr. Steele apparently is with Mr. Bester
They are
in the same prison.
same
That's what I've been
prison.
told. Yes.
Yeah, they're in the same prison.
Yeah.
He was also arrested in the same property.
Yes.
After he was arrested in the property, Nandipa and Thabo Bester came and stayed in the same property.
Yes. That's what I've been told happened, yes. The timeline is they've been investigating Cap Security and investigating a whole lot of people that's the residents are in the area. There is a resident person, or let's say property owner, 2 houses from me that's testified as well. The gardener, his name is Innocent, he's also testified. I believe Eugene Haddaday's team has been speaking to various people in the area, and they have confirmed, and some of the witnesses have confirmed they've been to the house for the modeling and stuff on portion 2. That's how they discovered it, but they didn't know it was Thabo Bester, it was someone else. Total
okay.
disguised.
So something very interesting here,
It
which
is
I'm sure even our viewers, they're going to be confused now.
That is
That's
the breaking
Nandipa
story.
that is in,
Yeah,
is in,
it's
is in-
surprising.
is in prison
Yeah.
in Free State.
Correct.
It might not be the person that is so-called Dr. Nandipa.
That's what the media has discovered, but they can't do anything because they've been told to keep their mouths shut. And this is why IGA World Network
Yes.
is going to broadcast this and break the story because, at the end of the day, you got ground up. they've questioned me about it as well. Don't you think it's Kiva? And I'm like, thinking, who is she? And this was last year already.
Yeah.
So I did my own research this year, and I already knew last year there was something funny going on because I already looked at the documents. I got the documents of Mr. Steele from one of the security investigators, and they asked me to look at these documents to see if this is linked to All Park Properties, and did I recognize the photo of this person. And he looks like Mr. Bester, Mr. Steele at the time. So what Bester looks like now, that's how Mr. Steele looked like at the time. So I'm very confused now. Is it Mr. Steele or Mr. Bester? Because I'm also on the CCTV footage when I serve the documents. So the police are asking me that question. Do you sure you didn't speak to Mr. Bester or Steele? And I said, no, it was definitely Steele. But look what he looks like now. And this was 2 days ago. And
so you are saying Mr. Steele and Mr. Bester, they were business partners.
Yes, that's what I've been told.
They are both in prison now.
Far as I've been told, they're both in prison.
But they look alike as well.
That's why I was questioned 2 weeks ago. Actually, 2 days ago, it was confirmed. No, this morning, actually. The investigating officer said to me, you better have your ducks in a row by next week, because what Bester looks like now is what he looks like in the photo in 2021 when you served the documents. So I'm very confused, and I said to my partner this morning, she said, no, it's definitely Mr. Steele. But you see, we don't have evidence to prove it. But I know in my head.
Crazy,
I know in my head and what I saw on the CCTV footage. So I can't lie. I'm on that CCTV footage plenty
So
times.
are you saying to our viewers that it's possible that the person that has been paraded as Thabo Bester with a new identity number which he did not have, it might be Mr. Steele that has been given a new identity.
I don't think so, because Mr. Steele's 63 years old or 64, but you don't know. It's hard to tell. When he was in court the other day, and what I see I asked the investigating officer, it's a bit of a touch and go here because you can't see much on the camera, but I've got to explain this in court. Because I'm on the CCTV footage quite a lot at the property, going there quite a bit. So I don't think so at all. I don't think so, but I'll be surprised if it is the same person. I doubt it.
Okay, but very interesting now that we have also been drawn into Thabo Bester's case.
Yeah,
we are going there as a witness, but we are going there as a state witness
for the property only. Yes, because now the question is about Nandipa or Precious or Bikiwe or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
She hasn't been seen on that property, and I have, and I've got a bill from the municipality for the last, since November 2021 to date, hasn't been paid. So the water hasn't been paid at all, but I've got all the statements to prove it. I just don't have Eskom because they won't give it to me. It's fine, I don't need their statement. APSA has also told me that there's speculations in at the division, but they told me not to speak to the legal department, which is fine, I won't, because they're taking me to court. So Jean Pretorius that Mr. Root was talking about, he's lied and committed perjury in his documents for the application opposing of my application 149-2022 or 149-59-2022. So he's committed perjury on the sixth respondent because they can't prove that she's paying her monthly bond. She bought the property in 2021 for 4.8 million.
Okay, the very same property.
The same property, portion one, not portion two.
No, portion one.
Yes. Now, according to Mr. Halliday, it was used as a storage facility. For what they were storing there, I don't know.
Okay.
It's very interesting what's actually happening from what I've been told. But now APSA needs to provide those bond papers, and they don't want to provide it to the court.
Okay.
Now, AJ Stradum asked this question, so I've been told by my attorney in February. And it was basically, no, they just want to remove my supplementary affidavit, but they can't even provide the bond papers because I alleged they committed perjury. And I've proved it now, because until they can provide the bond papers, until they can prove that the sixth respondent, Precious, is alive and well, and maybe she might be the lookalike of Dr. Nandipa, because that's there's another speculation there, but they can't find her, the other lookalike. So what are they going with now? So the 12th of October is going to be very interesting.
Do you believe in this thing of cloning of people?
I have, yes. It can be done in hospitals. They can do crazy stuff, especially with the AI technology today. But that's on the computer space, but not in the real space. But then you see women today, they put a lot of makeup, they can disguise themselves. Just put a new wig on, you can be this. I mean, look what Nandipa looked like in court the other day. That's what the security footage see on the property. That's how she looked like, and her other hair doing a different style. So her identity's been uncovered and real. But she doesn't know this yet, I don't think. But the question is, everyone thinks that I had something to do with them being on the property, and I didn't say anything in my court application.
But if she doesn't know, why she abandoned a bail application?
I think there's something behind it, because maybe she does know that I am busy fighting. Because I remember the attorney mentioned that she's in another litigation case.
Yes, which is unlawful
That is my
arrest,
case in the Johannesburg High Court. Now, I did send an email to Urich Associates the other day. He's the media journalist law advisor to get involved in my case, but the law firm doesn't want to get involved because of Mr. Steele and Bester and Dr. Nandipa, because of that property. They want to stay away from it. But you know what, Mandla? I've gone through so many attorneys, state attorneys, that they don't want to talk about that property because of the bad history since 2002. But why can't you represent me? They just don't want to, because they know there's too many deep pockets involved. It's not about deep pockets, about justice, about giving back what was stolen from me and giving back to the Seed family.
So the Seed family now, as it proceeds, it's obviously waiting for the court dates.
Yeah.
Where you said there's an upcoming pre-trial.
It's been in court for a few times now, since 2021 by Douglas Shaw. I think he had 2 case hearings or 1. And then in 2002, there was 2 court appearances. I appeared on the 29th of December in urgent court with Judge Fisher.
2022.
Yes, 2022.
Okay.
And
so is there another court date?
that was the case that was in there. It was urgent court, but Judge Fisher couldn't grant the order to let me move back to the property because it's linked to another case that I'm not even allowed to know. And I didn't know what it was. And then now I know what it is with Mr. Bester and Steele. I knew it was happening, but I just didn't know who the people were. But then on the 23rd of February, Ricky Erasmus went into court for a supplementary affidavit that APSA ruled against me to go get the court. They got the order corrected, basically had my application removed in court, but they didn't achieve that at all because they committed perjury. So that case will be heard. Obviously, now civil proceedings have been put on standstill, and because the criminal case is under investigation, because they're just trying to make sure that the 5th respondent and the 6th respondent are innocent, but in the meantime, they're not. I know they're not innocent. So it turned out to be Mr. Steele, and Precious turned out to be Nandipa, or she has a sister, or she has a clone, like you say. There's a lot of speculations going on now, and it's frustrating because they are dragging me into the case, and I've got nothing to do with it. Then they ask me, what do I know about the gold mafia and the refinery? And then I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, well, there's speculation that's what they were doing in the basement.
Okay.
And I thought,
that's what I wanted to get from
this
you.
is what Ultrazera told me as well.
That's in the property. The underground part, besides the bomb that was being left there, which was incomplete, there must be a refinery that was.
There was one. I think it's gone now. I'm not sure. I'm trying to ask the security guards. They won't tell me anything. It's fine. They just say, Mr. Seed, you're causing big problems. Just be careful because they are going to arrest you if they see you. So I know I don't care. They're just going to do it. Because they can't, because they know that the Royal Marines will be coming and there will be a big problem there because they are knowing that I'm fighting this case and the CIA also knows as well. So I'm hoping I've got some backup international, so if anything does happen to me there will be big problems, but they can't arrest me because I'm a normal South African citizen. I'm just wanting my dad's money that was stolen from the estate, and it's not only that, my mother's money was also stolen from her estate. So, and the property, but the main goal here is to get that whole 8,179 squares or 4,000 squares for now. The government can decide what they want to do, portion 0, because that's another mess with the Zandfontein farm. As long as I get portion 1, I'm happy of 4,000 squares. So I can move back to the property, but I know that I'll be under heavy security for 5 years. That's the arrangement that was made with Cap Security and all them, which is fine for my safety and also for the duration of the case. But they're not telling me stuff that I want to know. They're just telling me bits and pieces. But then they tell me there's dead bodies and all this stuff. I mean, don't talk nonsense. I know it's not true. If there is, then so what? Well, it's a crime, but the thing is, there's speculation going on.
Are you saying now you want to go back to the property that is a cemetery now?
It's not really.
That's what they're alleging.
That's what they're alleging. They're trying to make me scared.
It is a
well,
cemetery.
then show me the proof. Show it to me. But to me, far as I can see, is that it's a normal house. And it's normal ground. Yes, there might be funny business going on underground, or there was, but I don't really care because my dad died on the property. I want to go back to where I belong as my childhood home, because that is where I grew up. And when we have our final story at the property, that is when there's going to be a big party and a big bride, because that is the ultimate goal for this case. Because what I would like to see from the story is the journey begin now with court, not because of the media coverage. It's about what I had to suffer.
Yes.
But you see, I'm strong. I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
I have, had a lot of stress in my life, and my partner's also under stress. And I know I could talk about it now because Eugene Haddad said to me today, I mustn't be scared. I must let it out. If it's not true, we'll say sorry to the state and give a public apology. If it's not really Bester living on the property or Nandip on the property, you can just give a public apology and say sorry. Well, then where is the sixth respondent?
No, but you did not allege that it was Thabo living.
I've been
It's the state that...
The state has told me, yes, and I've seen the photos.
Yeah.
Now, it's like, how did they discover this? Well, if you go and type in Bikiwe Kiva on the internet, and you type in Precious Myrtle, you don't find much, but you find one photo on Facebook. And then you type in Nandip as well, and you put all the photos together, and that's how you identify the photos. You go through the hair, the eyes, not the hair, the eyebrows, the jawline, the nose, the eyes. I mean, I see now in the Senzo trial, they're really making complicated courts of identifying people. So I learned now how to identify people. But like Shamela said, they're still looking for someone in the AI specialist just to identify, to make sure it is to say, look, the state is going on that. If it is not her, then she has to state in court, it's not me, I have nothing to do with it. Best mistake, I never was there. But you see, they haven't touched on the property case because they're leaving it to be heard now in October in the Pretoria High Court, when the pre-trial happens for that as well. So I got a pre-trial for my case, and the best obviously pre-trial will happen as well. So next year they can identify the case.
Okay, so when is your pre-trial?
It's now been filed in the Pretoria High Court. 14959/2022 has been transferred from Johannesburg to Pretoria.
Yeah.
I've just amended the application now just to correct a few things, not add anything, just to make it more professional, because that's what I've been penalized by Judge Fisher and the other judge. Who wrote this? It looks like a dog's breakfast, but it's not about who wrote it. I'm a layman.
Yeah.
Douglas Shaw dropped me in 2022. I went to KGT attorneys. They dropped me because they don't do criminal cases, which I understand. So I went to STB attorneys. I went to Strauss Daly attorneys. I went to all the attorneys that's involved with the banks, and they don't want to help me. And I've been to private institutions and the state attorneys, which is State Attorneys Pretoria, legal-wise, but because I'm involved as a witness, they can't represent me in my case. And I don't even know why I'm actually a witness in this, because all I'm doing is claiming back the property, but you were involved by identifying who the sixth respondent was. So I said, well, I wasn't sure, but you guys said I was right. So is that making me a state witness? But then I found out, no, because you're claiming back the property, you automatically have to be a state witness.
Okay. So now have you got the date?
No. All I know that the Bloemfontein investigating IO has given it to Detective Jan Silverton to investigate of what I know, but they've been telling me as well on a weekly basis when I go to them to go and sign a document to say that I'm still around, I'm not running away, I'm not in a possession of ID or passport, I can't go anywhere.
So who has your ID and passport?
The police sent and took it from me last year when I was evicted on the Rivonia property. That's another
What was
story.
the reason for why was that
The
an order?
eviction? No, what happened was there on the Rivonia property on the 4th of May, I was evicted illegally by getting a fraudulent court order that was granted on the 6th of April by Lou Canyapan from Glover Canyapan Incorporation. They took me to court. Now, and have you ever been to court for an eviction? Have you covered a story for evictions?
Yeah.
How many minutes does each person go for appearance to get an order granted? Let's say first appearance, or doesn't always happen on the first appearance?
No, it doesn't happen.
It happened on mine as a first appearance. No. I was in court for 5 hours. And let's say 5 hours and 28 minutes in total. Being interrogated by the judge and Lou, and they were talking about my father's property and what I know about underground and what I know about this. And I thought, what has this got to do with the Rivonia property? So they're fishing for information. And then after 5 hours later, I was so drained because I had no legal representation, and I was trying to get legal representation, but nobody wanted to represent me. But it's fine. They want to talk about my father's property, bring it on. So it was question after question after question in the eviction court, in court 15. Now you're asking yourself 5 hours. And they granted the order on the same day, and I was evicted at the end of the month. And then that was now the 4th of May. Now you're asking, where's the transcript today? Where's the audio recording? Ricky Erasmus, who's representing me now in the Rivonia property and in the civil matter of my father's property case, she can't get any of the transcripts or documents, so meaning the eviction didn't happen. So the argument in court now for the eviction is that I'm wasting the court's time. I was never evicted. I left myself. No, I didn't. There's CCTV footage to prove everything. The police broke into the property, number one. They broke into, it's breaking an entry with no warrant of execution. They broke into the lounge door, cut with crowbar or whatever they did, chopped it open, came into the house, grabbed me, and they took me outside, and they said, right, Mr. Seed, you're going to either go to jail now or you're going to cooperate with us. Pack all your stuff now or we're going to do it for you. So they took everything out of the house, tucked it into the driveway, and then reliable removers came to pack into boxes, and also the stuff was in the house. I mean, you should see the footage. It's going to blow your mind that these people could actually do this without a warrant of execution. Sandton South Sheriff has admitted they made a mistake, but they thought the documents were legal.
So it was illegal documents?
Yes, it was the one that Jan Rutt was talking about earlier. I haven't got the document here. It was on, it said the Randburg Magistrate Court. It wasn't on the official Randburg Court letterhead. The stamp was black and white faded. Now that was the same document that I received on the 6th of April. That's all was given to me by the sheriff.
Okay. So there is no element that speaks to say they were after you because of your father's property.
Yes, it's got to do with my father's property. FMU wanted to cover up tracks. They got a claim and a warrant. They stole a computer. They took all my cameras. They took my SD cards. They took everything that was relevant to my case. I had documents stored, but they took all the main stuff that I needed. But it's okay. I mean, it's all stored in the cloud, and there's still various camera footage on my father's property. And the Rivonia property somewhere. So all the evidence is there for court, because what's going to happen, the evidence on my father's property and the evidence on the Rivonia property is going to be shown in court, and that's going to put all the banks in jail for life.
Yeah. All that, those are exhibits.
Yes, exhibits, correct.
They are stored away.
As far as I know, the Hawks have got it. Yeah, I don't know who else has got it, but I don't have any footage anymore. I've got nothing since
So how are you surviving without your pasasir, meneer, and
I don't know.
your ID?
That is what I'm trying to fight in court. Now, Ricky Erasmus said that's another case, which I understand is another case to get. Now, the court knows, Judge Fisher knows I don't have an ID, I don't have a passport. It's fine, I'm not going anywhere. And they know, because now I'm a witness, you're not supposed to have it. And they've been trying to arrest me for all sorts of stuff because they're thinking I'm involved in other stuff, but they can't, because my father was a captain in the Royal Marines. And they know if you mess with the Royal Marines, you've got big problems in South Africa. So that is the main thing.
That's the main thing.
That's why I'm protected,
Now yourself, you believe and think that we are untouchable.
Not really untouchable. It is possible. It is possible. I do fear myself at night. I do get worried, but there is security 24/7 protecting me, so it's fine. So they keep an eye on me. I had that in Rivonia by Mega Security. They're based here in Pretoria, so they've been monitoring me on the Rivonia property outside. They're still at the property now, believe it or not, in Rivonia. But they've been protecting and making sure that I'm fine, and they speak to me on a daily basis as well. But they're not visible where I am, because they're trying to make it not visible. But I have been protected. Nothing has happened to me physically. I have had guns at my head before security and stuff. I have... I've had knives at me. I mean, people have tried, but they're not going, because they're thinking that I'm trying to do something with these criminals. I have nothing to do. I'm not here to expose the criminals that was on my father's property. Let them do what they want. I don't care. All I'm asking is for my father's property. But no one has interrogated me since Mr. Steele's arrest and Best and Nanipa. Because it hasn't been told yet. But no one knows what's really going on. But now the police said we can take the credits. They can take the credits. I don't care. They discovered it, whatever. At the end of the day, if my allegations are false, what go wrong? All I could do is do a public apology and apologize. But at the end of the day, if the photos and the evidence and all the paperwork is matching, then I've got nothing to lose. But the sad thing is Strauss Daily attorneys started this whole thing with me on the Rivonia property and my father's property, but they never carried out on it because they were on the panel of the banks. But then you've got Lansdowne mini attorneys, Alex Wright, and I told her on an email last week, you've committed perjury, you better fix this before I put you in jail. And she hasn't responded.
So all these entities now,
Yeah.
they're waiting for your move.
They're waiting for my move. What am I going to do next? Well,
Yeah.
I'm on International Ultra Zero and IGU Network.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I've just exposed everybody. What are they going to do to me? Are they going to come and assassinate me? No, because it's the truth.
No, we know,
Yeah.
you know, with us, with our channels and our stories, nobody gets assassinated because they know that
They
we
know it's the
only
truth.
deal with the truth.
Exactly.
We don't
That is
deal
what's
with
important.
mongering and allegations, all these stories that the mainstream media, you know, covers. We don't cover those stories.
Yeah,
because we know most
it's
of
not
the
fake,
time
yeah.
it's not even half of the truth. It's quarter
Correct.
of the truth
Yes.
of what is going on. But
Yeah.
for us is we get into stories, hence we do few stories. But we do stories. Once we do the story, we know that it's a story, it's a true story.
Correct.
And when the story, look, I mean, I could share with Pala Pala as example. When we did the Pala Pala story, everybody thought we were cloning, we were crazy. Voila.
You did the investigation.
In 2022, the story came up. Voila.
You're correct.
Arthur Fraser got and charged the president. Voila. The matter is now stagnant within the obviously investigations and whatever.
And this is what I like
But
about
it's
what
the
you're
truth.
doing now. What you're doing now is not like the media now. They're posting all sorts of nonsense about Nandipa and Best online about 50 million. What do you think of that 50 million rand story? Do you really think, I mean, Eugene was saying to me, how do you store 50 million rands worth of items in your car, number one? Number two, it could have been taken from the property. Number three, was it really on the aeroplane when you were in Tanzania? So all those stories.
No, we just concluded we're making fun out of it.
Yeah,
to say
correct, 'cause
maybe
we don't know.
he had 2,000 rands
Yeah.
that the cops stole from him.
Yeah, that's about it, maybe. Or-
You know,
yeah.
they stole. So now, just because those police, they stole the 2,000 rands or $2,000, they are guilty of theft.
Yeah.
Now he's putting his list now to say, you
50
know, you
million.
did not only take the $2,000,
Yeah.
you took a 2-3 million rand dollar Rolex.
Dollars and Rolex watches
know,
and a car and a house
you
and
know,
this.
so
and,
it's that's what now it's the biggest frustration for our viewers and
yeah,
everyone
because
around
they
South
just
Africa.
want the ratings. That's the problem with the SABC and all the networks, and
The problem is, if we are a failed state or a failing state,
they're making it worse for themselves.
you're making it worse for
And this
everyone
is
because
why-
there's no investigation that
Yeah.
is being, you know, done and it's been done. But
Yes.
these stories happen. I mean, I had a pre-interview with Johan some time ago.
Yes, I think I
And
did see that. Yes.
You did see that?
Yes, I did.
On my way here,
Yes.
arrested and da.
Yeah.
Those things
I
happen.
heard, yeah, it's like
real.
interrogation. Why are you doing that?
It's real. They were not arresting me. They were just driving me around
yeah,
in circles.
just for fun. Just to say, don't you dare do this. And
So, which means they knew he was already waiting here, and then basically they were just doing their thing for him, but eventually they did not succeed. But we are going to follow your story to the end.
Yeah.
We are committing to that. We are committing to make sure your next court appearance, we are there.
Yes.
We make sure that we gather enough information to share with our viewers in terms of how far is this case
yeah,
going.
it's definitely going to be in October. That's
Yeah.
what I know that for the court appearance. I don't know if I'm going to be appearing in Bloemfontein on the 12th of, because they're trying to let me be on Zoom and Teams, which I've been available to do. You know, just if they want to talk about the property issue, but they're still trying to finalize things just to see there is not another clone of Nandipa. But there's no ways. They can't find her because she's not there at the property. She's not. Where is she? Why is she not paying her bills? Why is she not doing this? In the meantime, she's in jail. That's what Lansdowne mini attorneys are busy doing now. They're making the state thinking I'm lying, that it's not her. In the meantime, okay, fine. Is it her sister? Is it this? But no. I was told this morning that it's definitely Bikiwe Kiva. And Eugene Haddad can confirm that as well. Those are the main speculations, because otherwise, where is Precious? There is talk that she's deceased, and now that property is now a state property. Now ABSA thinks they can sell the property and claim it, and STB attorneys are now doing an estate application for Precious. In the meantime, they know that they are lying, but because they know the country's a failed state, they know they can get away with the corruption, which is wrong. So what you're dealing here with, Madla, is that you're dealing with two estates. My father's estate, my mother's estate. In a space of 35 years, similar acts have taken place as far as evictions go. 2002, my mother was evicted and I was evicted. 2022, I was evicted. But there's a difference. 2022, I went to court. 2002, I didn't go to court. And now, it's actually sad. Now you're dealing with trust money. And then you look into all the trustees, like Janine Meaden and Rika Chetty, the executor. How could they allow this fraud to happen? But it's their bosses that say they must do these things, but they've now been caught out because now there's an application that Ricky Erasmus has filed against ABSA, and not against FNB, because ABSA is involved with it, but ABSA claim they're no longer the bondholder of the property. It's now Standard Bank. Now Strauss Daly attorneys are going to be opposing, so I've been hearing from Ricky's secretary, which is the only one that's opposed. Now I've dealt with him because they tried to evict me the first time on the Rivonia property. So, Monday, what you're getting at is you're dealing with multi-million rand fraud, and especially my father's estate. It's been valued at estimation of 40 million rands worth of shares that needs to be given back from British American Tobacco. And I'm hoping Johan Rupert's going to help me with that and get to the bottom of it. But they just assisted where they could just to find out information about the shares, because I don't know much about the shares. So whatever I get at the end of the day, I'm not going to be, I'm a rich person. I'm going to help South Africa and make a difference. The money that I make, this is my ultimatum to you and to everyone else, that someone in trouble and that's in need, I will contribute money every month to everyone that needs help to fight corruption in this country with court cases, because it's, number one, it's very sad for people to lose their properties. Why must you be evicted if the banks can't prove the paperwork? And if you can, as a normal South African citizen. And people think I'm just crazy, I'm just doing it for the money, I'm doing it for the media fame. What media fame have I had till today? Nothing.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You do it for media fame, you're doing it for money.
I'm doing it
yes,
for...
everybody needs money today.
Correct.
But the truth of the matter is, your family property,
correct,
it's not clear why it's sitting vacant without your family members living in that property.
Yeah, so as far as family members go in South Africa, I'm the only one left. Everyone's just left the country. I mean, I don't understand why, but it's fine. Once I get my dad's property back, trust me, the whole family, because that's another thing. The whole family was distant since 2002.
Okay.
And that's the sad thing. I want to rebuild the family that I have. My brother's kids, David passed away in 2012. He had two kids, Nicola and Robin, and my brother Edward has Belinda and Vivian. They've all got kids now. They're all grown up. And don't have a child yet, and I would like to have a child, but I can't because of all the stress. And my partner is frustrated as it is because we can't have a family. I can't do what my father wants me to do on the property, which is to spend, I can still spend my lifetime there and still have a children and family and all that. And then, you know what I'm going to do is when I pass on, I'll sell that whole land and make it in memory of my father, something to do with the Seed family. So the legacy, and I thank you for actually acknowledging that you want to see this to the end. Trust me, this is just the beginning.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your story. We are committing as IG World Network that we'll follow your story right to,
thank
to
you,
the
I
end.
really appreciate it.
But it's scary.
It is scary. It's very scary. I mean, if this whole thing with the 5th respondent and 6th respondent, if it's really true, remember, the only truth is when it comes out of their mouths. Yeah. That's the final truth. But you know what? It doesn't bother me. I don't mind. At the end of the day, you ask the question. If it is a fact, why did you buy the property? And if it was all over the internet, this thing about the property has been on the internet for years. And you're asking yourself, getting to your first question, when I ask you when you buy a property, what do you do when you buy a property? You go and search on the internet. And if you search my name and all that, you think, no, you wouldn't buy this property. So you ask your question to the 6th respondent, why did you do it? But you know what? Those allegations are all for the state to deal with. I just have to just answer whatever the state asks me to answer.
Thank you very much, Richard. Your
No,
story,
thank you very much.
your story
I really
is
appreciate it.
touching indeed, and
It
we'll
is.
make sure that it reaches as many people as possible.
No, thank you.
So that they will be alert and be aware with what is the rot that is happening in this country of South Africa, of us. But for viewers in the African continent, we are continuing to share the stories that are coming in different countries in the African continent. Please make sure that you follow our stories and make sure that you share the stories with the people around you so that they do not fall victims into what is happening, the crimes that has been committed by people that we trust, which we call in our channel, it's white collar crime. Once again, thank you very much for watching our show today. We'll see you until next time. Adios for now.